some more. Breaking was the latest scene. News so fresh as never been.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're really diving deep into a story. It's got it all. A former NFL quarterback, reality TV, and, well, a bit of a run-in with the law.
Yeah.
We're talking about Jay Cutler.
Yeah, he's making headlines again.
He is. And look, it doesn't matter if you're a huge football fan or just know him from those shows with Kristen Cavallari.
Yeah.
This is big news.
So what happened? What's he in trouble for this time?
Okay, so October 18th, 2024, Cutler gets arrested in Franklin, Tennessee. TMZ, of course, was all over it.
They always are, those guys.
It's uncanny. But here's where it gets interesting. It wasn't just, a simple thing. DUI, driving under the influence, obviously never good. But then there's more. Failure to exercise due care. Violation of implied consent law. Oh, and to top it all off, possession of a handgun while under the influence.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah, that changes things. Those extra charges, especially the firearm, those are serious. We're not talking about a slap on the wrist here. This could have real consequences.
It's a long way from those Smokin' Jay days on the field.
Speaking of Smokin' Jay, just in case anyone isn't familiar with Cutler's career, that nickname kind of says it all, like about his public image anyway. A lot of people called him that because he always seemed so indifferent on the field.
He did have that vibe, didn't he? Aloof, almost like too cool for school.
Exactly. Some people thought it meant he didn't care enough. Others said, no, that's just his confidence. What do you think? Did Cutler's attitude ever make you wonder if he was really invested in the game?
He definitely got people talking, that's for sure. But regardless of how you felt about him back then, these charges, they add a whole other layer to it. Makes you think, was that really just who he was? Or was it a sign of something more?
It really makes you wonder, and it makes you look back at how we saw him before, Maybe we need to rethink things.
Right. So just for a little background, for those who might only know Cutler from, reality TV, he played 12 seasons in the NFL. Denver Broncos, Chicago Bears, and even the Miami Dolphins.
He was drafted 11th overall. That's a big deal in the NFL world. And he had some great moments, set some franchise records, even took the Bears to the NFC Championship back in 2010. But he never quite hit that superstar level.
It's like he was always almost there, but never quite reached it,
Exactly.
Right.
And that's what makes this whole arrest so interesting. How's it going to affect how people see his life? On the field, off the field, the whole thing.
It's a great question. And speaking of off the field, we can't forget about Very Cavallari. That reality show really put his life with Kristen Cavallari out there for everyone to see.
Yeah, and that adds a whole other dimension to all this. How will this arrest affect his image, especially after trying to build a brand after football?
It's another layer to an already, let's say, complex public persona.
And let's be real, that mugshot, the one where he looks, a little worse for wear, it's everywhere. Quite a change from those carefully staged reality TV days.
It's a good reminder that those shows, they only show you so much. There's always more going on behind the scenes.
And it makes you think, how will this affect things with Cavallari? They've got kids together. Co-parenting's tough enough as it is.
Oh, absolutely. And throw in the media, potential legal battles, it gets messy fast. This is a story with a lot of moving parts.
It really is. And speaking of moving parts, let's unpack those legal charges a bit more after the break, especially those more serious ones.
Okay, so we talk about the charges, but let's break them down a bit, especially those that go beyond your typical DUI, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Those extra charges, they really change things. Like failure to exercise due care, that one suggests Cutler wasn't just impaired, but he was driving recklessly.
Recklessly how? What does that actually mean?
It means he wasn't just a danger to himself, but to everyone else on the road too. Like he really wasn't in control.
And what about that violation of implied consent law? What is that?
So basically, in a lot of states, Tennessee included, when you get behind the wheel, you're automatically agreeing to a blood alcohol test if you get pulled over, right? Refusing that test, that's a whole other charge. That's likely what happened here.
So he digs himself into a deeper hole by refusing the test.
Exactly. Not only does it make it harder for him to fight the DUI, but it also comes with its own penalties. License suspension, stuff like that, even if he's cleared of the DUI.
Wow, so it's like a lose-lose situation.
Pretty much. And then there's the big one, possession of a handgun while under the influence. That's where things get really serious.
Because now there's a potential danger to others, not just himself.
Exactly. Mixing alcohol and firearms, it's a recipe for disaster, shows really poor judgment. And legally speaking, the consequences could be much more severe.
We're not just talking fines anymore.
No, we're talking potential felony charges, mandatory minimum sentences, the whole 9 yards. It could really impact his life.
A long way from endorsements and autographs.
Right. It really puts things in perspective. One day you're on top, the next you're facing serious consequences.
Shows that even those who seem to have it all can stumble.
Exactly. And it reminds us that personal responsibility matters, no matter who you are or what you've achieved.
And speaking of achievements, Cutler's time with the Bears, it was a wild ride. Big highs, like those franchise records, that NFC Championship game in 2010. But a lot of criticism, too. His performance on the field wasn't always consistent, and then that whole aloof thing we talked about.
You know, some people actually like that about him. That he wasn't your typical quarterback, always trying to please everyone, always putting on a show. He was just himself, good or bad.
He did things his own way, that's for sure.
And that unpredictability on the field, off the field, that's what made him so interesting. You never knew what to expect.
Kept us guessing. And speaking of unpredictable, who could have predicted that whole reality TV phase?
Right. That was a turn. But you gotta admit, very Cavallari, it showed us a different side of him. Family man, husband, trying his hand at business.
Humanized him a bit, something all those years in the NFL didn't really do.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, how's this arrest going to affect that image he built? Will people see him differently? Or will they stand by him?
Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, this story isn't over yet. We'll be watching to see what happens, legally and personally. People can't seem to look away.
It's true. And it makes you think, where does he go from here?
Left.
Will this be like a wake-up call? You know, a turning point for him?
It's possible, isn't it?
Or does this become, I don't know, another story of a former athlete struggling with life after the game? We've seen that before.
We have, unfortunately. And sometimes it seems like the bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Right. It's a good reminder that behind the fame, the money, they're human too. They have their own problems, their own weaknesses, just like all of us.
No one is immune to that.
Yeah.
And this really highlights a bigger issue too, doesn't it? Fame, alcohol, guns.
Definitely. It makes you think about responsible gun ownership, the pressures of being in the public eye, and, well, the fact that actions have consequences.
Consequences not just for yourself, but for everyone around you too.
Exactly. And it shows that no one is above the law. No matter who you are, what you've done, the rules still apply.
It's a good reminder for all of us. So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear Jay Cutler's story is far from over.
A lot of layers to unpack here, unanswered questions. And who knows what twists and turns are still to come.
We'll definitely be keeping an eye on things. And in the meantime, this whole situation, it's a chance for all of us to think about our own choices.
Yeah.
Who we surround ourselves with, and how important it is to be accountable for our actions.
Couldn't agree more. It's a bit heavy, maybe, but important to consider.
It really is. And on that note, we've covered a lot of ground today. The specifics of Cutler's arrest, what it could mean for him, and even what it says about us as a society.
It's been a fascinating conversation, and maybe a little bit disheartening, too.
It has. But as always, we want to hear from you, the listeners. What are your thoughts on all of this? What resonated with you? Head over to our social media and let's keep the conversation going.
We always appreciate your perspectives.
And until next time, keep asking those tough questions. Keep seeking out the truth.
Press play now, let's hear some more. Breaking was the latest scene. News so fresh, it's never